Hello everyone, welcome to LNC Pro. This is Ratnesh Parikh, and in this video we will learn about one of the essential elements of a valid contract, which is free consent. According to section 10 of the Indian Contract Act, free consent is one of the essential elements of a contract. If the consent of either of the parties to contract is not free, contract is considered to be void. We have learned what is a void contract in one of our previous videos. In this video, we will see when will consent be considered free consent. Section 14 of the Indian Contract Act defines the word free consent. According to section 14, consent is free when it is not affected by these 5 things: coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, and mistake. In order to understand free consent, we will need to know what these 5 terms mean. Let's discuss these terms one by one. First is coercion. Coercion is defined under section 15 of the Indian Contract Act. Coercion is, in simple terms, means compelling someone to do something by using force or threats. According to section 15, consent is caused by coercion when the consent is obtained by putting pressure by either of the following ways. So according to section 15, pressure can be put on the parties by these 2 ways to obtain consent, and it would be considered coercion. First is if somebody is doing something or threatening to do something which is prohibited by IPC. Second is unlawfully detaining or threatening to detain any property. For example, if A points a gun to B's head and asks him to sell his house for an amount of 10 lakh rupees. Here, A is putting pressure on B and obtaining his consent. This is also unlawful under IPC, Indian Penal Code. This contract will not be valid because consent is caused by coercion. Second is undue influence. When the parties to the contract have a relation with each other, and in that relation, if one person is in a position to dominate the will of another party, it is considered undue influence. But in order to constitute undue influence, the dominance must be used to obtain an unfair advantage over the other. If there is no unfair advantage, it is not undue influence. Imagine a person met with an accident and his health is critical and he needs immediate medical attention. Here, the doctor says, only if you sell your house to me for an amount of rupees 5 lakh, I will treat you. Here, doctor is obviously in a dominant position over the patient, and we can clearly see that the doctor is taking unfair advantage of the patient. This contract will not be valid because consent is not free and consent is obtained by undue influence. According to section 16 of the Indian Contract Act, a person is deemed to be in a position to dominate the will of another, where he has a real or apparent authority over the other, like a police officer over the accused, or where they are in a fiduciary relation to each other, like patient and doctor, creditor and debtor, or where he makes a contract with a person whose mental capacity is affected. These are the situations or examples of situations when a person is deemed to be in a dominant position. Next is misrepresentation. Misrepresentation means misstatement of a fact material to the contract. Section 18 of the Indian Contract Act includes 3 types of misrepresentations: unwarranted statements, breach of duty, inducing mistake about the subject matter, Let's understand what is an unwarranted statement. When a person makes any statement and he actually does not have proper information as to whether his statement is true or not, but he believes it to be true. For example, A is selling his car to B. A says the car is 2018 model, but he actually does not know whether this is 2018 model. But A genuinely believes that this car is 2018 model. This induces B to purchase the car. This is misrepresentation of the first kind, which is unwarranted statements. Now let's see second type of misrepresentation, breach of duty. In this kind of cases, there is no intention to deceive anyone, but there is always gain of an advantage to the person making the statement. There is always a breach of duty involved. For example, a doctor tells his patient that a particular kind of operation is totally safe, but in reality that is 99% safe and there is risk of 1% harm. Here it is the duty of the doctor to tell patient about that 1% risk also. We can clearly see that the doctor had no intention to deceive, but he gained an advantage. Advantage here could be maybe the patient would have thought twice before the operation because there's 1% risk. In this example, doctor committed misrepresentation and the consent is not free. Moving to the third and the last type of misrepresentation under the Indian Contract Act, inducing mistake about the subject matter. Section 18 clause 3 talks about these kind of situations. Section 18 clause 3 says, causing, however innocently, a party to an agreement to make a mistake as to the substance of the thing which is subject of the agreement. Let's understand this with the help of an example. A second-hand car dealer attached a disclaimer to the car under sale stating that the mileage reading was incorrect. The dealer knew the true mileage of the car, which was very low, but he did not disclose it. Here, buyer's consent is not free. Now let's discuss fraud. If the intention to deceive, if there is an intention to deceive someone or to induce someone to enter into a contract, these 5 things are considered fraud. Making a statement when it is not true, even when the person making the statement knows that it is not true. Second, active concealment of the fact by a person who has the knowledge of the fact. Active concealment. Third, a promise made without intention to perform it is also fraud. Any other act fitted to deceive. And fifth, if there is some act or omission which is declared by law to be fraud. So these are the 5 things or situations which would be considered fraud if there is an intention to deceive someone or to induce someone to enter into a contract. Moving to the last term, mistake. Mistake can be of 2 types: mistake of fact and mistake of law. Mistake of fact can be of 2 types: when one party is at a mistake or when both the parties of the contract are at mistake. Mistake of law is also of 2 types: mistake of Indian law or mistake of foreign law. Mistake of foreign law is treated same as a mistake of fact. A contract is not voidable if it was caused by mistake of Indian law, because we all know that ignorance of law is not an excuse. As discussed, mistake of fact can be of 2 types: mistake of fact by one party, also known as unilateral mistake; mistake by both the parties, also known as bilateral mistake. It is unilateral mistake, the contract is valid. If it is bilateral mistake, agreement is void. Now let's summarize this video. We have seen free consent in as an essential element of valid contract. Free consent is a consent which is not caused by 5 things: undue influence, coercion, misrepresentation, fraud, and mistake. In this video, we have understood all these 5 terms. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. If you have liked the video, please share it with your friends. Till then, bye. See you in the next video.